Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyal here with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
At WWDC last month, Apple previewed iOS and iPadOS 18, macOS Sequoia, and its other operating systems. While the official releases of the software won't come until the fall, Apple has a public beta program where users can get pre-release versions of the software and test the new features. And with these betas in particular, there's a good amount of buzz for reasons we'll get into. And so these public betas might be the most anticipated ever, maybe, since Apple started the public beta program. So if you're thinking about installing the public betas that were released this week, we thought we'd talk about them on the show today. So I think one thing we need to make clear that these betas, not all of the OSs that Apple creates are available in the public betas. It's particularly iOS 18, Sequoia, iPadOS 18. There's no watchOS beta, is public beta, is there?
There are now. They do watchOS. That used to be a developer-only thing. And there's tvOS as well. Vision Pro is developer-only. So Vision OS 2. And HomePod beta is weird. It doesn't always push. Sometimes they have updates for HomePod that are only for developers, and you don't just register for the developer beta. You have to register as like a HomePod developer to get them pushed to you. But then other times when you update your phone and all that other stuff, it does update your HomePod. So HomePod's a little wonky.
But sometimes the features across platforms tie into each other. So for instance, you need to have iOS 18 beta to run some of the features that you want to do with macOS Sequoia, for instance. Yeah. So if the public beta is not available for a particular platform, you may not be able to get to try that feature. Now, the reason why I said in the beginning that these are probably most anticipated public betas is that because at WWDC, Apple debuted Apple Intelligence, and that's the AI features. And those might be the features everybody's all excited about because that's what everyone's talking about now. But I guess play sad trombone. I guess cue to sad trombone.
Yeah, not in any of the betas yet. No Apple Intelligence stuff. None of the
we assume at some point this summer it'll be there, but we don't really know because Apple hasn't really said what will be available on day one. So
yeah,
it might take a while.
Apple's guidance on this, their public statements have been, when it ships this fall, Apple Intelligence will be in beta, meaning that it will be available for people who aren't beta testers. It'll just have a beta label on it, right? It'll be labeled beta. And they've said it will be available for testing this summer. We don't know if that will only be in some developer beta or if it'll be in public betas or whatever, but it's not in any of them now. So sometime between now and September, we do expect to get the Apple Intelligence stuff as part of at least the developer betas, if not the public betas. And when they launch, they'll be labeled beta. But then there's some Apple Intelligence features that come later this year. Like some of the integration with ChatGPT. Yeah, so the ChatGPT integration stuff will probably come after launch, but this year. And then like when it comes to Siri, a lot of the Siri stuff about it understanding you better and all that other stuff, that's supposed to ship with iOS 18, but it is not in the beta. It is not in the public beta now that you can get. But then there's more advanced Siri stuff, the stuff where it can read your screen and perform all these actions within all the apps and all that other stuff. None of that's supposed to come until next year. That's like next spring, not iOS 19, but like.
Yeah, it's been reported iOS 18.4, which is generally like March or so.
Right. They're supposed to have a developer release for that in like January, and then a long beta because they have to release for developers, all these what they call app intents. Those are the hooks that developers put in their apps to let Siri talk to their apps. Apps have to publish new versions. They have to test all that. They have to build that in their apps and test it and be ready to publish it when 18.4 comes out. So if you're super excited about Apple Intelligence, if that's the reason, that's don't even worry about these betas. They're not in there yet, not even in test form. Siri is pretty much the same way it has been in iOS 17. It looks the same, it acts the same.
It's not the first time or the last time that the feature everybody wants to try out isn't there on day one, because they talk about a lot of cool stuff at WWDC that's not ready even in beta form yet. So I remember what was the one, Roman, for the Mac, when the one where you put your iPad next to it and you can go back and forth, like that took forever.
Universal control.
I
was just thinking that. Yeah,
that took a long time to get there. In fact, even beyond the initial release, like I think it was the following year or maybe December, but it was late. So, Apple, I said it I felt it rather during the presentation, like it didn't seem like Apple really wanted to announce Apple Intelligence this year. Like, I think they were kind of forced to due to the AI climate. Right.
Yeah.
So now it's out there. They demoed it, and now they got to really make sure that it's refined, because Apple is not the kind of company that's just going to drop something like this and say, we'll figure it out once it's out there. Like, they're going to make sure it's rock solid before it ships.
It's worth pointing out that even if it was out, if you don't have an iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, you couldn't use it. Or on the Mac side, it's got to have Apple Silicon. It's got to have at least an M1. Yep. So for a lot of people, even if it was in the beta, you wouldn't be able to use it.
But there's still cool stuff.
There's tons of other cool stuff in these betas.
Yeah,
I totally stole Roman's transition. I bet that one was written down.
I was just about to make a segue, and I love to make the segues. But yeah, so there are still several features that are worth the install of the public beta right now. So maybe we should go over some of those. There's a developer beta that comes out before the public beta.
Yeah.
And Jason's been playing with the developer betas. Do you have a particular favorite set of features that people should check out?
The things that are going to be the favorite for most people are, one, all the home screen customization stuff is there. You can finally put empty space on your home screen and move things around. There's dark mode icons. They've updated it. A couple of the developer updates have updated things so that it kind of makes dark mode icons out of most icons that don't already have a dark mode icon and everything. So that's starting to look good. You can tint your icons. You can resize widgets without removing them and putting them back on. So those things. Control Center, like the new Control Center that has a lot more features and a lot more stuff, and and you can resize controls and it has multiple pages. That's all there. But the hooks for third-party apps to make Control Center controls is not in yet. There are no third-party, and that's going to make Control Center awesome, and so that part's not in yet. But even so, new Control Center is great. You can change what the two buttons are on your lock screen. Right now, it's just flashlight and camera, but you can change those to like any Control Center control. You can change your action button to any Control Center control. So the customization stuff is the stuff that I think most people would appreciate right now most about what's in iOS.
The home screen stuff is the one that is what everybody wants. We've
welcome to
it
2018.
Since, like, the third
Apple,
year of
really.
iPhone, right? Yeah.
It's kind of it's so silly that this is like a hot new iPhone feature.
Yes,
but that's so far behind like other phones.
Yeah,
but it's there and it works and it's nice and it looks good.
I am particularly excited about the new flashlight app.
That flashlight interface is cool. I'm sorry. It uses, if you have an iPhone 14 Pro or 15 Pro, they added this adaptive true tone flash, which is basically can move the two elements of the flash closer or further apart, which makes the beam wider or narrower of the flash. And that was so that when you're up close to a subject, you have a wide flash instead of a bright spot on somebody. And when you're further away, it concentrates the flash a little more and it gives a proper, right? And they use that with the flashlight, so you can actually make the flashlight beam wider or narrower. Plus, just
so
slide
it
it
looks
up and
cool.
down.
I've seen the animation. The animation's awesome. Does it actually work in the sense
does.
Does it actually do what you're doing?
Yeah, it does. I think it's in kind of about 3 steps. It's not like a smooth gradient of thing. It's like wide, medium, and narrow. And it's the kind of thing you don't see super immediately unless you if you turned off the lights in your room and you did it, you'd be like, oh yeah, look, it's like wide and less bright because the light's being scattered wide. And then when you put it narrow, you're like, oh, it's kind of more of a spot on the wall. Like it's more concentrated and bright. So it does work. It's not the most dramatic thing in the world, but it's your phone flashlight.
When I saw the animation the first time, it's like one of those things that Apple does because like they can. Like, like we're really good at this stuff. Every now and again, they just throw a software feature in there that's not really necessary, and it's just to basically say to the rest of all the other Android phones, like you still can't touch us.
It's the most over-designed flashlight interface ever, and it's so, but it's also nice. It's just very intuitive. It's simple. It does immediately without you having to be told how. You know how it works, and it does what it shows. So you can change your action button to be a toggle for the flashlight.
Yeah, I'm gonna love that.
That's pretty cool.
Having the ability to change they added 2 things basically to the action button. One is Shazamming stuff. There's like Shazam hooks all throughout the OS now.
Yeah, it's about time. Apple bought Shazam like 5 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
They haven't really done much into. So Google, way back when it came out with the first Pixel, had this thing called Now Playing, and you could hold up your phone all the time, and it'll just read out at the bottom of the home screen what the song is without having to go through a bunch of menus. And it seems like Apple's getting closer to really kind of, Shazam is the thing. So
if you have
leveraging that.
If you have the Shazam app, you can leave it. There's a mode where you can just leave it running, and it stays in your dynamic island, and it just pops up when it identifies a new song.
That's super cool.
And it's really nice. And they've had that for a little while, but it used to be that like Shazam was powering if you asked Siri what this song was and stuff, but now they have like real hooks throughout the OS. Anyway, they added Shazam to the action button, and they added controls, which is just pick one of the controls from Control Center and put it on your action button.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all the controls, because it's not going to be things that have an up and down level, like how bright is this light or whatever in your home or your volume. But it's going to be anything kind of with an on-off toggle. So and anything that launches apps like Calculator and stuff like that from your Control Center. So yeah, if you like using your phone as a Siri remote for your Apple TV, it's going to be super handy to put Siri remote as your action button and just launch it instead of having to dig into stuff. It's really cool. They're making action button really useful.
The Photos app is getting kind of a revamp, and whenever you hear something like, oh, the Photos app is getting a redesign, people start to go, what? Because it will be one of the most used apps on the iPhone, and when you do something like change the interface, that's going to get people kind of, concerned because they may not be able to do what they want to do on it.
It is the most contentious change. If anybody installs iOS 18, I suggest spend some time with it and then use the feedback app to tell Apple what you think. One important note is scroll all the way down, and there's a customize button way at the bottom of Photos, and that lets you pick which categories of things you want and what order and stuff. That will make a big difference for you. But they're generally changing the main interface of Photos to be from a catalog of all of your photos to photos as a destination for like, I'm not going there to find a specific photo. I'm going there to relive my memories and look at that time I went on that trip and do, they're trying to make it a destination app instead of just like a catalog, a photo catalog. And so there's a lot of stuff that's like, it's surfacing images to you. There's a lot of screen real estate devoted to, algorithms that go on this day back and then, or remember this trip or whatever, or make a cool movie out of your photos. And if you don't like that, you don't want that, you're going to be so mad that there's just so much interface and screen devoted to this stuff that you just don't care about. I'm not going to just open photos on a whim and decide, oh, what does it have for me today? Like, I don't use photos that way. But they kind of want that to be a thing for people. So
that's what Google Photos does that a lot. They're always pushing you like little collages and montages and things.
Yeah.
And Apple does that too, but Jason's right. It just based on what I've seen, like it's very much in your face, and it is very contentious. Like all over X and Facebook, people are like, "This is terrible." And listen, you'll get used to it. Apple will make tweaks to it, but it's quite a bit different than what it is now.
They've already made some tweaks, but because they used to I think in the main Photos catalog, which is kind of at the top, and then you can scroll back. They used to like hide screenshots, and I think they put those back in because everyone's complaining. That
was the only thing I was excited about. When you said is there an option to hide the screenshots?
I don't. I honestly don't remember, and I don't remember if that was exactly the thing they changed, but it's something along that level. It's a small tweak. But I do recommend that go to that customized option and start turning off things you don't want to see and reordering things you do want to see. That will help. But it's a different Photos experience, and it's not necessarily better if what you want is that you have a photo in mind and you just want to open the Photos app to most quickly find it. If you're just going to open the Photos app, just be like, I just want to look through my photos. It's like picking a photo album off the wall and just reliving memories and stuff. It's
a lot of the times, like my reason for opening the photo app is to see the thing I just took.
Yeah.
Is that like, that's not easily acceptable anymore?
It will be in the top half where it shows your list of all your photos. They are sort of reverse chronological. So it'll be there.
Okay.
It'll just share half the screen with a bunch of other interface about this day in history and whatever, One of the things that's better for everyone though in Photos is the search is a lot better. Like the semantic search and stuff. Like if you typed something general like car and you have a ton of pictures of cars, it will suggest other filters like by year or locations and stuff like that you can use to like drill down and find the specific picture you're looking for. And it identifies a lot more things in your photos than it used to. It was always good at that, but it's done even more. So the Photos search experience within the Photos app is really good now.
That's good. More often than not, when Google Photos sends me like this date in history thing, it's like a collection of like screenshots I took for an article 5 years ago.
Right.
Like they do that all the time.
Yeah. So Jason has a list of features you should check out when you install the public beta. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. I think one people have a concern about when they hear the word beta is stability of the software. Mm-hmm. Have you encountered any weird behavior or app conflicts or anything like that?
There were some real good bugs in the initial developer beta. I mean, there was stuff like if you resized controls in the control center, like things would get all wonky and start overlapping and still be on the screen when you close control center. Like there was some real messed up stuff. By this point, which is they released developer beta 3 last week and then an update to it, like an updated developer beta 3 this week. And that's the same version as the public beta. It's pretty solid. It's more like there are just some missing features. There's just some stuff they announced that's not there yet. And there'll be more tweaks. I haven't noticed like battery life taking a nosedive. It's always a little bad for like a day or two after you install the beta, but it seems pretty stable. So I think it's in fair shape. I think the normal caveats apply. Use a backup device if you can, or at least take a backup device and get it up to date with all your stuff so that it's your emergency. This app doesn't work thing.
Yeah.
The main thing was that, and I don't know if this is better now, but then initially upon release, there were some apps that didn't work that were like the Kia car app or something. And it would be, that's really annoying if that's your key to your car, or if you always use that to start your air conditioning to cool off your car when it's hot out or whatever. And it was the standard stuff of it doesn't recognize that beta, so it thinks you're jailbroken and prevents the app from running because they don't want some hacker getting access to your car.
Right. That's actually like a security thing for those
It's a
types
security
of
thing.
apps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you should be
there were a
grateful,
couple of
but
banking
also it's
apps
annoying.
that were for like small regional banks
Same thing,
that
yeah.
did the same thing. Like if you have Chase or Wells Fargo or whatever, those all work. So I think some of those are getting better now. Once the public beta is out, those sort of things start to improve. We should mention how to get the beta, because that's a little different than it used to be too. You used to have to install a profile and stuff. Now you just go to beta.apple.com, sign up for the beta, which just means sign in with your Apple ID and say, yes, I want the beta, terms and conditions, blah, blah, blah. Agree.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to do anything on your device. You don't have to do anything special on your device. You don't have to do that on every device you want the beta on. You just then on your iPhone, your Apple TV, your Mac, your whatever, go into settings, general software update, and you'll have the ability to say current release or a beta, and the public beta will be listed there, and you can just download it. So it's tied to your Apple ID now. You just agree, and then your Apple ID has access to the beta. The other feature that is a little wonky that people should be aware of in the beta is RCS. We talked about that a lot when they announced it a long time ago. RCS is your green bubble conversations with Android people will still be green, but you get like typing indicators that can be long, that can be good group chats. You can have full resolution images, tap backs, all that stuff. And it all works, but your carrier has to support it. And here in the US, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile all do support it, but none of the MVNOs seem to. Even some of the ones run by those companies like Visible, which is a Verizon one, and stuff like that. So if you have Xfinity Mobile or any of these other like things that piggyback off those networks, you don't have RCS. And it just started this past developer beta, spreading out to other countries' carriers. So major carriers in some other countries do have RCS support, but it's going to require, you'll know it's on because when you start a conversation in the little text entry box, it will say iMessage, or it will say text message SMS, or it will say text message RCS. So if you're super excited about RCS, it's kind of major carriers only right now, and we'll see what happens as we get closer to launch.
Have you guys played around with the iPadOS 18 beta? Is there anything about that particularly stands out?
I have not yet. As far as I know, it's a bunch of iOS 18 features.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
them showed off like Math Notes. It's technically Math Notes is also in iOS. In the calculator, you can select Math Notes. You can write on it with your finger and do all the same stuff, and it actually syncs. It's through the cloud. It's there on your iPad and stuff. It's just, I haven't messed with a lot of the iPad specific things.
Yeah. But there are a lot of iOS features that are on iPadOS.
I think it's only. Are there any specific iPad features this year?
I wrongly keep thinking that Math Notes is iPad only, but it's not.
I mean, it is
because it was demoed, right? It was demoed on the iPad, and most people who will use it are going to be iPad users, but it does work on the iPhone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think all the stuff, I think the notes stuff, the smart script, the thing where it kind of copies your handwriting,
Mhm.
it smooths out your handwriting and then like copies it as you edit and everything. I don't think that's on iOS. I think that's only an
Okay.
Yeah, right. That makes sense
iPadOS
too.
thing. And it makes sense because you would need that more with Apple Pencil. I think you could just write with your finger and it would still work, but it really feels like an Apple Pencil thing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if highlighting text, like literally text highlighting, is they showed that as an iPadOS thing too. iPadOS is often a year behind whenever they do all this home screen stuff on the and UI stuff on the iPhone, and it's not this year. They have all
Right.
that stuff with like put your icons wherever you want and tint them and dark mode icons and all that. That's all there. So it's
Yeah.
nice to see them
For sure.
in lockstep for a change.
For macOS Sequoia, probably the feature that everybody's looking forward to is iPhone mirroring.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the continuation
You've
set.
tried that one out, Roman.
I've tried it out. It's pretty slick. It was pretty solid when I tried it out. But if you're the type of person who kind of uses their iPhone adjacent to their Mac frequently and would like just a little more efficient way to use it, you're going to look forward to this feature. You have to have Sequoia and iOS 18 on the iPhone. You can't have an older version of iOS or the current version of official version of iOS on your iPhone to use iPhone mirroring and Sequoia. It has to be iOS 18.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
you need the beta on both.
Yeah,
I think it is so slick. It looks phenomenal. The connection, it's again with the Apple with over designing like everything that where it's like it'll say like Jason's iPhone, but like the way the like text fills up as it's connecting, and it's just all these little details. But it's pretty low latency. Like, like I wouldn't play Call of Duty with it, but it's
right.
But like games like all the match 3 games and stuff like that, sure, yeah. I mean, they everything looks crystal clear. I don't see any issues. It actually is running on your phone, so your phone's locked and the things are happening on your phone, and that's just the interface on your but the sound comes through your Mac and everything. So if you have your headphones on because you're listening to your Mac and you want to hear your phone, that'll work fine. It's really good. The only feature missing is drag and drop. That is one of those coming after release things, and it's not in the beta right now.
Yeah.
That'll be the ultimate in making things handy. Just being able to take a file on your Mac, drop it into the files on your phone without having to like iCloud it up and all that, or
I mean, remember the days
when
find it. We would have to go to like Target disk mode and get FireWire cables and hold the button down and restart one machine and not the other one. It took 20 minutes to get a file shared from one Mac to the other.
I mean, just
cool.
having your being in the middle of an email or something in a web browser on your Mac and wanting to drop in a photo and connecting your phone and just dragging it out of photos straight into your email. That's the dream that's coming like in some update later this year kind of thing.
The other thing that people might be interested in Sequoia is the new Passwords app. I have to admit, I haven't played with it that much.
That's across everything as well. Jason can can talk about.
It's everything,
that as well.
and even Windows. If you install the iCloud app on Windows, there's browser extensions to put all your passwords in there, and it'll autofill passwords. I think there's an actual passwords app coming to Windows, but for the time being, if you just have the iCloud thing installed, you'll get that. It's all the password stuff that's buried in settings in various places, just brought into an app where it's easy to browse, and it has a way to share passwords with family members and stuff. I mean, it's pretty bare bones, but it's the most of what you need. does two-factor codes. It does passkeys. You can share passkeys with people and stuff. I mean, if the reason you have 1Password or LastPass or something like that is because you use all these different platforms and you really need or advanced features or whatever, it's not going to do any of that. It's not going to, but if all you need is like better access to your passwords and two-factor authentication, it's fine.
There are a few other features in Sequoia, but I guess the last one worth mentioning is the Windows tiling. If your desktop's a chaotic mess with open windows and apps, it'll help. The thing is, though, I think a lot of people who have that problem have already gone on to a third-party utility. The Windows tiling implementation that's in Sequoia is relatively basic compared to the third-party utilities that you can get. So you're probably not going to abandon those utilities, but you can give it a try in the beta. I don't know what else to say about it. It works.
Yeah,
it's Windows tiling.
It's the kind of feed, like Apple has had the side-by-side apps for a while. Like it's just another version of that.
Yeah,
they keep
adding really
multitasking on top of multitasking on top of multitasking. I mean, you're going to use your Mac, but especially your Mac, as you have for the last 10.
It just feels like
years.
A feature that it's a little like the home screen customization stuff on iOS. It's just they're catching up to 5 years ago. Like everybody else, Windows and Linux and everybody else had like you drag your window to the corner and you can put things in four corners, and you just like these things have just worked that way. So now that it works that way in Mac, it's nice. It's good that it works that way.
Yeah,
but it's not exactly a revolution.
Yeah.
If you want to run the public beta, again, beta.apple.com, you sign in with your Apple ID and you say, you agree to all the terms and conditions. And then you can get it on any device you want, just going into general settings, general software update, picking it. They have it. It's basically for everything but Vision Pro right now.
I mean, here's a question. Would you want to put a beta on your $3,500 headset? I mean, you own one, Jason. Would you do it?
Yeah, I actually bet people I bet people would, because right now you kind of are in that experiment. You have it to experiment anyway. This is not a device that you need for your daily everything you do. This isn't how you're accessing your bank account, your car, and your all the whatever. Unlocking your house every day. This is, So yeah, I think it is. I think it's that kind of thing. But that's only for developers right now. Yeah. Everything else you can get it, but you're kind of got to be all in, because, like you said, Romans, a lot of features work together. A lot of features, even if they're not something like the iPhone mirroring, it's an update where if you're using the old version of something on your other thing, it might be a little wonky. So it's like you kind of want to update the beta to the beta on all your Apple devices or none of them. It feels that way. It feels like when you're off a step, just part of your ecosystem.
Yeah,
it's weird. There are some updates for things like AirPods and stuff that come sometimes only with the developer beta and all. It's just them working on it's firmware updates. You can't trigger them manually anyway. They just happen if you have betas, and it's just Apple working on some of the AirPods features that they're building, like the thing where you can nod your head to talk to Siri.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 893. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, or through any other podcast app. Do you have any comments or questions? Send us an email at podcast@macworld.com, or contact us through X, that's @Macworld, or on Threads, that's @Macworld_HQ, or on the Macworld Facebook page. Join us in the next episode of the Macworld Podcast as we talk about the latest in the world of Apple. See you next time.